Support for Illinois Lawmakers comes from the Paul Simon Public Policy Institute at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale. Information available at paulsimoninstitute.org.
Hello and welcome to Illinois Lawmakers' weekly coverage of the scheduled last month of the spring session of the Illinois General Assembly. Hello, I'm Jak Tichenor, along with Rich Miller, the publisher of Capitol Facts. This has been you can't say it's been strange for years around here because of the lack of the budget and all, but it's been an up and down year. The grand budget is an up, or the grand budget's down, and we seem to be doing this roller coaster thing as we head into the month of May.
Yeah, they're trying to get, as we speak, they're trying to get things back together again. But, there's still a long way to go, I think, on a lot of things. And now I could be mistaken here, and maybe a logjam could break. But I think there's some will in the Senate. But again, even if they ever get this monster out of the Senate, it still has to come into the chamber that we're sitting in, the House. Right. And then, there's another monster to deal with over here.
We're a long way from getting to the goal line on this thing.
Long.
That's not to say that there hasn't been some news. The Speaker and the Governor got together last week for over half an hour, and they didn't come out swinging at each other in the news media afterwards.
That's true. They give a couple little digs, but nothing really major. They didn't call each other criminals or what have you. Usually, late April, early May, if the Speaker and the Governor sit down for 40 minutes, that's not news at all. Because especially if they're talking about the budget, because they're supposed to have a budget finished by May 31st. This time, though, they haven't spoken since early December, in a formal setting. I think they were at an event the other day together, and so they may have waved to each other or what have you, but they have not spoken since December. Think about that.
Not the way it used to be around here. When you used to get the revenue projections in the latter part of April, there'd be almost weekly meetings of the governor and the four tops and the budgeteers and all that.
Right, because they'd want to get out so they could, go back to their districts.
Could this whole thing break around something like the House's version of a lifeline extension of money for higher education and social services?
Yeah, and maybe even, the House passed a bill last week which had downstate mass transit in it, right? $200 million. And a lot of Republicans voted for that. Days after voting against human services and universities and colleges, saying we shouldn't take the pressure off. But the pressure was being felt in a lot of their districts in a big way, and so they voted for it. So yeah, there's a potential for putting something together to at least patchwork something together to keep people afloat for a while. But that's not going to solve any problems.
No, and it's a heavy lift when you talk about passing a tax increase in the run-up to a general election.
Right. The further we get from January 1st and the closer we get to next January 1st, it makes it more difficult. Now, you remember, in the original grand bargain proposed in January, and which was then knocked off the rails on March 1st by Governor Rauner, the tax increases were retroactive to January 1st. So the longer you go, man, I mean, if Minnesota did this.
That's
right?
Potentially billions of dollars in revenue that it's not coming into the state's coffers.
Well, but if you think about if it's a 1.25% increase, right? People are going to have to take a 2.5% increase.
All the way back to January 1.
Right, from here on out in order to pay that back. And that makes the bite ever larger every day that goes by.
Rich Miller, thanks for your insights as always. We appreciate it. Coming up next on Illinois Lawmakers, a look behind the numbers here at the state capitol. when you talk dollars and cents here at the Capitol, and at least in the Illinois Senate, the conversation has to start with the Senate Revenue Committee. And we're pleased to be joined by the chairwoman of the Senate Revenue Committee, Senator Toy Hutchinson, Democrat of Chicago Heights. Good to have you on the program again.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we were just talking before we rolled here about just how fluid things are here in the first week of May. And you know, you've been here for a number of years now, and I've been around for a few years too, and that's really not unusual.
Right, right. Towards the end of May, it is when you start to see pieces come together. That's always been the hope. It's been different for the last few years, but I think there are a lot of, especially rank and file members, that do not want to go home for a third summer with no budget.
That's absolutely right. And you know, there was a brief glimmer of hope here last week when there was some news made, finally some news made between Speaker Madigan and Governor Bruce Rauner. They held their first informal meeting since back before Christmas. They met about 40 minutes. For a lot of us who kind of try to read the tea leaves around here, what kind of significance should we attach to that?
Hope. Hope. I think right now what is clear in the building is that none of us can do anything alone. None of us. The governor needs the legislature to act, the legislature needs the governor to sign it. So when you have an atmosphere where people start digging their heels in because everyone wants everything they want, it really impedes the governing process. So I think any conversations that happen amongst opposing parties and opposing ideologies has to be viewed as a good and positive thing. Because we only have, what, 3 weeks left? Right,
right. It's kind of unusual, too, because this is the first week in May that I can recall in a long time that the House hasn't been here, and only the Senate is working.
Well, the schedules, get worked out a year in advance almost. It's like when we get the announcement for what the calendar is going to be, everyone starts to behave accordingly. We know when we're going to be here, when we're not going to be here. On the Senate side, we're trying to. I think there's an effort to see whether or not we can give the grand bargain a try, a push. We were all so hopeful in January and February and March because there was hundreds of hours put into from sanctioned groups, unsanctioned groups, work groups, individual offline conversations with people. We have a lot of folks that are sharing their concerns with each other, and I'm hoping that bubbles up enough in these next 3 weeks for us to really drive home the point that there is nothing good for any taxpayers in the current situation right now. So holding out for some better deal later is becoming harder and harder every day that goes by where nothing happens.
And at the same time, you run into a situation where every day we go without a budget, we go $11 million
a day.
Yeah, and that's an unreal figure for most people, but now that adds up to like something like it's over the $12 billion mark.
Over the $12 billion, and it's climbing every single day. And that's a part of the equation that I don't think we talk enough about, that the revenue portion is the portion that kind of is the glue that holds everything together. There's no way a grand bargain or any budget deal works without the money to pay for it. But we have a lot of conversations about taxes and the visceral reaction that brings out in everybody, myself included. It brings out because you're talking about people's personal finances, but we don't talk about what those taxes pay for. And it has to be a record to have all 7 of our state universities downgraded in one day.
I was just going to get to that in a little bit, and of course there is a move afoot right now to try to work out something with a version of some call it a lifeline bill, some call it a stopgap bill, and there's a lot of nuances in the terminology there. But you know, there's a portion of the state income tax that continues to be collected as the tax receipts continue to roll in,
and was designed to do that.
Right, and part of that could be earmarked is earmarked for higher education. There's another chunk of that goes to social services. The totals are like what, $812 million right now that's in the bank, and over $500 million of that would go to higher ed, and the rest to social service agencies, all of whom desperately need it at this point.
Absolutely. I mean, I understand for people who have been waiting for months and months and months and sometimes years for work that's already been provided, contracts that have already been completed, things that were already appropriated. So I understand why, for those folks, this does feel like a lifeline. I think we view it in the Senate as a supplemental, because this is money that's there, that's being collected specifically for those purposes. And considering the situation and how desperate these two sectors need it, this is something we ought to be doing. We've done many times before. We pass supplementals all the time. It doesn't make sense for us not to release those funds.
Could that be, in a way, sort of a means of kind of jump-starting new talks about the grand bargain and different versions of that? We've heard, of course, that Senator Bill Brady, the Senate Deputy Republican leader, has his own version of, I guess you could call it a new bargain or new bargain 2.1 or whatever. Mm-hmm. That has some revenue increases. It also has some cuts in it. Could this be jump-starting the talks on the whole issue again?
Well, I think that because we've been trying to work in good faith mm-hmm. to come together for something that's going to get us 30 votes. We need 30 votes in the House and 60 votes in the Senate. Those are the three most important numbers, 30, 60, and 1. And I think what you're seeing, or what people are seeing play out, is really what the legislative process is supposed to be. We have a number of people who onboard their ideas. And we have to flush those things out and try to figure out how to cobble together a roll call that's going to get this done. This is, it's not the fun part. It's definitely not the fun part. And I do think that because the supplemental, or as referred to as a lifeline budget, it's not a budget. It's not a full budget. And we've not had a full budget since, I think, 2013. We've been doing these stopgaps and supplementals all along. The state is no longer just limping along. It's crashing.
That's because when that temporary income tax increase sunsetted at the end of calendar year 2014,
right.
All of a sudden you had a $2 billion or more budget hole blown, or hole
nearly
blown.
5.
Okay. Well, by the time
yeah.
you start to go into 2016, 2017, and you got this huge hole. Now it's like an $8 billion gap
right.
between income and spending,
right.
because a lot of this 90% of the budget is still being spent in terms of court orders and consent decrees and things like that, and
exactly.
executive orders.
And
yeah.
ironically, it was what Judy Bar-Topinka warned us against. Don't let that income tax sunset where we would blow that big of a hole in a budget precipitously, that it would be next to impossible for the state to deal with that. And that's what we're seeing the results of. This is, that was the largest, essentially the largest tax cut the state's ever seen. And what we've gotten as a result of it are school districts unable to make payroll, the worry about whether or not districts will open, the near destruction of our safety net for people who need it the most. We know what's happening with our higher education system. Businesses that rely on contracts for the work that they did are now, they have contracts that aren't worth the paper they're written on. There's nothing worse for the economy than massive instability. And that's what we've had ever since this happened. So it's time for us to do what we came here to do.
Yeah, and we're seeing, for example, some of those back bills. We've got like something like $2.5 billion in medical bills that are owed to the state's hospitals and managed care providers.
And people who have health insurance that's paid by the state can't access health insurance when they can't pay out of pocket because doctors are waiting 6 months to a year to be paid.
Right.
For the services they provide. It is untenable. This is not sustainable. And the best thing we can do for our economy, the best thing we can do, especially for the folks who can least bear the burden of all of this, is to get this done.
You've been in conversations leading up to the grand bargain and beyond, and is it fair to say that there's an acceptance on the Republican side of the aisle that new revenues are going to have to be part of the solution at some point, in addition to some cuts?
Yes, I think that's a widespread accepted understanding. What those cuts mean is where the details are. Mm-hmm. And what those revenues will be are where the details lie. And even Senator Brady's budget assumes Senate Bill 9. It assumes a revenue portion that was included in the grand bargain. Under those scenarios, with COGFA, readjusting our numbers down, with sales tax receipts not coming out.
That's the legislature's forecasting arm.
Absolutely.
Right. Mm-hmm.
All of those things are changing every day because we're digging a deeper and deeper hole every single day. So really, what it is we need to get all of our constituencies to understand is that every day that goes by, this gets harder. And when you add politics to it, it can seem like it's impossible. But that's why we need to, everyone needs to take a deep breath and think about not the next election, but the next generation. because right now we're doing significant damage, and our ability to rebuild from this is going to be long and hard.
Yeah, we're going to be years digging out of this.
Absolutely.
And, good luck to people of goodwill on both sides of the aisle.
Absolutely. If you think about it, $4.5 billion or so in debt in 2015 has now exploded to over $12 billion in debt and climbing. If this thing goes on until 2018, because we want to make this a litmus test on a political campaign, we're going to be looking at $24 billion in backlog. If we are having this much trouble handling what we have right now, it terrifies me to think about what would happen if we let this continue to careen from crisis to crisis to crisis.
Senator Hutchinson, thanks so much for your time today. We appreciate it. And next up on the program, we will hear from a couple of central Illinois lawmakers about how things are going in their part of the state as the budget crisis rolls on. Let's get a central Illinois perspective on where things stand as the Illinois General Assembly heads into its final scheduled days of the spring session. For that, we're joined by Democratic Senator David Koehler of Peoria and Springfield Republican State Representative Tim Butler. Good to have you both on the program again.
Thanks, Jack.
Senator, you've seen budgets come and go over the years since you've been here, since 2006. Representative Butler, you've been here a couple of years now, a little over a couple of years, and you've yet to see one truly pass as a full year's budget. So let's get some perspective on where things stand here today.
Back in the old days when we actually had budgets that were passed on a yearly basis, this has been unusual. It's terribly hard. It's really kind of depressing to us as legislators to be here spinning our wheels when we know that there's such hurt in our local communities. Schools are uncertain about, I mean, even though we said we're going to budget you for a full year, we're not paying them for a full year. And so, you know, and I don't know if the public recognizes that.
There are things like categoricals and things like that too.
Yeah, so it's just tough. I mean, we've got to get our way out of this.
You know, here in Springfield, I represent a district that covers the capital city. The budget impasse has disproportionately impacted the folks in Springfield. We have vendors, providers that are owed hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's certainly beginning to have an impact on the local economy. The city of Springfield says that their tax revenue is down. We've seen new home construction at a half-century low, I believe. And so, I mean, it's having a serious impact, that's for sure.
Well, in Springfield, of course, with the two major hospitals here and the SIU School of Medicine is a major medical care provider. You've got like $2.5 billion in back bills there. Same Peoria for West Central Illinois, the same kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. No, the degree of hurt is widespread throughout the state, and people expect us to do our job, and that's really what we come to Springfield for. The main thing is to pass a budget. I do have some hope that the Senate is trying to do the right thing. You know, both President Cullerton and Leader Radonio have really made an earnest effort to try to bring together a compromise. You know, we started voting on the grand bargain a couple weeks ago. There's some tough bills in that, but you know, I tell people when I talk to them about the budget, no one is for the grand bargain. No one is for it, which means it's a good compromise. Yeah. That's what compromise is.
If it makes everybody mad from all the sides of the dial, I guess it's got that going for it. There was a little bit of optimism here last week in that Speaker Madigan and Governor Rauner actually got together and they came out of the meeting. They weren't throwing dead cats at each other.
Well, I don't think much has happened since that meeting, and I think that's the key. I was glad to see that they got together. It had been a while since the governor had met with the leaders on the Democrat side, so I think it was a hopeful sign. We'll see moving forward if it bears any fruit. I'll be honest, I have a little more confidence in maybe the Senate, something coming out of the Senate, than anything going on in the House right now. We did pass what is called a lifeline budget onto the Senate, but that certainly I don't think is the answer to our need for a full year budget. So, you know, I was glad to see that they met, but you know, we'll see what happens over the next few weeks.
As we record the program, there's still some conversations going on how the Senate might actually deal with that House-passed bill, which came on basically a party line vote.
Yeah, and I think that there's similar feelings that this doesn't solve the whole budget issue by any means, but this is $800 million that's already there. It's It's been set aside for purposes of higher education and for social services. So if we don't do anything else, let's at least use that to help provide some relief. But, you know, if we can use this to help spur additional conversations about what we need to do in passing a full budget, then let's let that happen as well.
Well, one of the things the governor, of course, has said in recent weeks that he's been pretty optimistic that something could still happen with regard to the grand bargain. There hasn't been much from the Senate Democrats to suggest that there's been a lot of movement on that, but there is some movement from Senator Brady, the deputy Senate Republican leaders, got his own take on that.
Yeah, and I think that there's some discussions right now just to see how that fits into what has been described as the grand bargain. I mean, if we want to have a budget, and I was fully expecting that the Senate was going to pass this bill on to the House and let the House then deal with it, but quite frankly, the governor blew it up, and this has nothing to do with the Speaker. This is his issue at this point. So please let us do our work in the Senate, and there's still plenty of time to discuss this as it goes to the House, but let's get something done.
When you look at it, though, we've got roughly 3 working weeks left before May 31st. Anything after that to pass to have an effective, immediate effective date has to have a supermajority.
Yeah, but that doesn't make any difference because a budget has to have bipartisan support. Cullerton has described this perfectly to say the reason for all of this is that we have to have new revenue. And the only way we're going to have new revenue is if we have a bipartisan vote on that. So that means that we're going to have to incorporate other issues into this discussion. But so that deadline of June 1st and whether it has to have a supermajority or not doesn't make any difference. This has to be bipartisan.
How do you see it?
To Senator Koehler's point, he's exactly right. Nothing's going to pass the House and the Senate, get signed by the governor without the governor approving of it, which means there's going to have to be Republican votes on it, and vice versa. Nothing is going to pass the House and the Senate without the approval of the Democrats. So we need to work collaboratively on this and find a solution. I agree. If there's a budget deal to be had, it's going to have bipartisan support. You're going to see lawmakers from both sides vote against it, and you're going to see lawmakers from both sides vote for it. And I think at the end of the day, that's the frustration, at least in the House that I've seen, is that the Speaker has not been willing to come to the governor and sit down and negotiate some of the items that the governor would like to see. And I think everyone needs to understand that both sides are going to have to give a little, and both sides are going to have to get something at the end of the day.
Let's talk about a couple of those issues that the governor has he's basically said, I have to have workers' compensation reform, I have to have a permanent property tax freeze for homeowners and property owners around the state. I still want term limits. Are those, there are various, that meets with differing opinions on both sides of the aisle.
But understand that compromise means just what Representative Butler said. You both have to give a little in order to get something that's really within the realm of common interests. You can't draw a line in the sand and just say that's my negotiating point. That does not work. It may work in private business, but it does not work in the public process. And so you have to understand that if we're going to get to a bipartisan solution on this, you've got to allow people to vote their districts and to represent the people that sent them there. And we don't work for the governor. We work for the constituents that elected us.
But he wields considerable power and considerable clout, particularly over the Republican caucuses.
Well, I think the governor's come a long way on his initial proposals from 2 years ago. And at the end of the day, like I said, both sides know that there's going to have to be things that are agreeable to both sides. And some of these ideas that the governor brought up are going to have to be things that are finally in whatever grand bargain there is. Everyone has non-budgetary issues that they would like to see included in the budget discussion. That happens on every budget that goes into effect. And so the fact that the governor gets criticized a bit for having non-budgetary items in there, I think that's false. Everyone has issues that they would like to see take place on when we get to a final deal.
But term limits, how does that apply to the budget?
Well, I think term limits are one that the people want. Does it directly involve the budget? No, but I think people would argue over the long term, having legislators in place for decades does impact the budget. So, I mean, that's one that I think there's broad bipartisan support, And if this is an avenue to get term limits in place, I think that's where the governor sees this is how it's going to happen.
I've got a little more cynical view of that.
Here in Springfield?
I really like Tim, but we don't always agree on everything. You know, term limits is one of those issues that polls very well. And so
I know the Simon Institute's done that. Yeah.
And so you kind of glom onto that because you think it's going to help to make you popular. It has nothing to do with the budget, you know. And we have term limits. They're called elections. They happen every 2 or 4 years. You know, let's not confuse our current issues with trying to do term limits and trying to do political things. Let's get to the budget and let's resolve this. If we need to work on, you know, we've in the grand bargain, there's workers' comp reform, there's pension reform, there's procurement reform, you know, there's property tax reform, there's all these things that the governor has asked for. Why can't we take a vote and actually have people allowed to vote their conscience on this?
I think one issue where the Senate did show some leadership on when it comes to term limits is leadership term limits.
Oh yeah,
where the Senate has enacted that in their rules,
right, and
has agreed to put a constitutional amendment, I think, on the ballot regarding it. And I think that's even more than term limits on legislators. I think legislative term limits leadership term limits are something that are vitally important to move forward. So we'll see if that happens in the House as well.
And redistricting reform at some point.
And at some point.
Yeah, and I agree with both those issues.
Gentlemen, thanks very much. You found some common ground.
Oh,
that's good. That's good to hear.
He represents my old hometown of Peoria, so that's good.
Well, that's good to hear. Senator Koehler, Representative Butler, thanks so much for joining us. We certainly appreciate it here. We'll be back next week for our weekly continuing coverage of the final month of the spring session of the Illinois General Assembly here on Illinois Lawmakers. So long from Springfield.